Hello again to our next session, our session 2 for today. Before we start, I would like to remind all of our audience once again that following the presentations of our 3 speakers of our next session, there will be picked 2 questions for all of our speakers. So please listen carefully and, write a question in a Q&A box to our speakers. But to be sure that it's in an Q&A box, not the chat box, because the chat box, if you put it there, it will not be selected, okay? And every day we will randomly select 2 questions from the audience to win a prize of our 50th anniversary souvenirs, which is the SPAFA bag, quite beautiful. And after the conference, if your question is picked, you will be the winner and we will contact you after the conference. The conference proceeding will be released online at the end of our last session. That means within today. For this session, we have also 3 speakers. All of them will be presenting about collections and museums, types of museum development of museums into specific type of museum. So let me start our second session by introducing our first speaker of this session. She will be talking about Beyond the Artifact, promoting archaeology, promoting technology. And let me introduce Cécile de Francquen. She will be giving a talk on that topic that I said, Beyond the Artifact, promoting technology. Cécile Cécile has been graduated in archaeology and anthropology. She's specialized in both discipline in studying pottery technology and production processes through the use of chain operatua Ganava. She's been working in South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, where she's currently trying to continue her research on Vietnamese production processes and their history. And her talk should be interesting. She is the graduate from Université Libre de Bruxelles in Belgium. So can I give the floor to you now, Cécile?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very good.
Okay. Perfect. So I share my screen. Here. Okay, so good morning or good evening or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. So today I will present to you the approach I'm using in my PhD research to study domestic Vietnamese pottery. This approach is called technology. It is not new, but it's scarcely used in Southeast Asia. So it intends to go beyond the physicality of the object to explore human technical behavior involved in the production processes. Unfortunately, my talk today will be mostly theoretical. Because of COVID, my research has been delayed, so I don't have many data yet. But I would like to grab this opportunity to have each of you try and consider how this approach could be used and contribute to your own project, material, or work. And I will be happy to hear about your thoughts in the Q&A session. Note also that today I will be talking about ceramics, but the same approach can be used for lithics and metals. So also I will focus on Vietnam, which is my research area. So if you know any research on other parts of Southeast Asia that I would have omitted, please do report them to me. So now let's dive into it. I will first survey the current approaches to ceramic technology used in Southeast Asia before developing the approach I am using in my research, and explain to you how it works and how it can benefits our researchers. So current approaches to ceramic technology, yeah, because ceramic technology is not unknown in Southeast Asian archaeology. Among those studies, we can find two main focus points. The first is the clay composition analysis, which uses XRF, NNA, ECPMS petrography. It is used to identify different types of clay, and usually it is used in provenance studies. The second one is about firing, so either looking at cooking temperature or firing structure. In the first case, it is usually more of a side note in clay composition analysis. And the second is more about like the architecture of the production firing structure. Besides those, there are, of course, many ceramics researchers that frequently mention broad shaping techniques categories, such as modeling, coiling, or wheel throwing techniques, but they are rarely discussed any further. So the approach I'm using is, I think I'm missing a slide, but it's okay. So the approach I'm using in my PhD is called technology. It has been developed by French School of Archaeology and Anthropology, and it aims at reconstructing the technical processes from the beginning to the end. So not only the first step with the clay processing or the last step with the firing, but the whole process from clay composition, from clay and processing to shaping and everything up to firing. And also the internal logic of the succession of those steps. So why should we care? Because we have to look at the anthropology now. One learns technical skills through observation of a model that represents the good way of doing things. All at the end of the learning process, the skills learned are literally incorporated, and the learner also built a representation of technical acts and representation shared by all the members of these social groups. On a more collective level, the tutors are usually selected in the same social group as the learner. So as a result, usually technical boundaries are conform to social boundaries. The nature of the community in which the same way of doing things is passed is variable. It may be a clan, a tribe, a faction, a caste, a subcaste, a lineage, a family, professional communities, ethnic, anything. So, sorry, so technical processes are not just techniques, but articulate with raw materials, tools, knowledge, representation, agent, also all the social aspects around the craft. Beside the great variability of each of those elements, the nature and arrangement of those elements stem from a web of social, historical, and ecological relations. And they are not only delineated by social historical framework within which artisan operates. It also determines how individuals shape and give meaning to their daily engagement in the craft. The result is that the diverse way of doing things among different social groups, but a great regularity within each group, stabilized through transmission processes, which creates technical traditions and usually coincide with social identities. So as social meaning inputted in the technical processes result from learning, we can identify the type of social identity linked to each steps of the technical processes based on the type of relation involved to learn the skills, knowledge, or meaning. So based on Lev-Gosselin identifies 3 types of knowledge acquisition relations. So the first is the direct and sustained interaction in which artisans engage mutually in the same activity that creates a community of practice. It includes processes as a whole, also specialized body techniques, tool handling, sensorial appreciation, and so on. More than that, there is the casual interaction. So when people from the same craft just casually interact and exchange, for example, clear receipts, things like that. And the last one is mediated interactions. So there is no real contact between the artisans. Considering that, although the identity can lay in at any stage of the technical processes, the most stable techniques, either on the individual or group scales, are usually those involving the most sustained interaction. So mostly it's the process and the logic, the internal logic of the process, and the shaping techniques. So what does that mean for archaeologists? In archaeology, the analysis of the nature of the social groups is necessarily contextual and often conjectural, giving the so we can see that any technical processes is indicative of a way of doing things inherited from one generation to another. A technical tradition is the expression of a social group. The spatial distribution of technical traditions indicates the social parameters within which they were learned. And so we can say that technical tradition can be a powerful chronocultural marker. But how does it work? Researchers have developed analytical tools to reconstruct the technical processes. The main method is based on macro and micro observation of manufacturing traces used to identify the source of energy, the elementary volume, the forces, the type of pressure, the degree of hygrometry at each step of the manufacturing process. These elements lead to the reconstruction of techniques, methods, processes, and sometimes also we can go up to the tools and even the gesture. These methods has been developed mostly based on ethnographical and experimental work compared with archaeological materials. So it is now tried and tested and really viable. So when the ancient technical processes are reconstructed, each one can be said to represent a social group, and it helps with archaeology in many ways, such as site studies, for example. From a synchronic point of view, if you can identify different technical processes within one site, it can contribute to understand the status of the site or some areas to determine the function or also the function of some sites. It can differentiate between domestic gathering or gathering sites and ritual sites, or highlight a different occupation area. It also helps in identifying and characterize social groups, of course, as technical traditions are inherited and transmitted within one particular group. Synchronous variabilities of technical processes is likely to indicate distinct social groups when the differences are not attributable to functional factors. The social groups in question is the producers groups and not the consumers groups. Moreover, production involves economic, political, and ritual aspects. Therefore, technical processes are also linked to the social system, and so reconstructing the technical process can also lead to have some information on those aspects of the societies. It also indicates a lot about exchanges. If provenance studies focus on the material, they allow for the identification of imported artifacts. They give geographical rather than social information. When we combine provenance studies with the analysis of the complete technical processes, it is possible to differentiate local imitation from imported artifacts, from objects locally produced by foreign workers, leading to the identification of population movements. On a more larger scale, technology also makes it possible to reconstruct ancient exchange networks by analyzing spatial distribution of technical processes. Technical studies seek not only to identify exchanges of goods, but also understand the modalities of context and exchange of ideas, skills between groups, addressing the transmission of technical elements, comparing different components of technical processes over a region, lead to the reconstruction of a genealogy of practice, which are like the origin, circulation, and evolution of certain technical traits. Shared elements reveal the existence of intergroup exchanges, while divergence reveal incompatibilities with the social system, a lack of contact of or the adaptation of the technical system to social changes. So with the study of production processes, we can approach the nature of relation between different social groups. And lastly, the history of those groups, as all the preceding elements can be analyzed in a diachronic perspective to restore the temporal and cultural dynamics of technological parameters, allowing for the identification of processes, evolution, borrowing, imitation, innovation within technical traditions, and to parallel them with the stylistic chronologies. This shows that technical and formal styles are not engaged in the same identity strategies. The evolution of technical component can also be related to known historical or cultural phenomena. This reflects the history of social groups in terms of endogenous and or exogenous evolution of material culture. Let's give you an example with my project in Vietnam, which serves several purposes. The first is the first aim of my research is to gather ethnographical ethnographic description and or of currently used technical processes, together with the micro and micro traces they leave on objects. This allowed the identification of current technical tradition. Part of those 2 points have already been initiated during my master thesis, which is why I am able to show you here some of the preliminary results. I also already began the reconstitution of ancient technical tradition on archaeological materials, but I have to work exclusively on material from European museum, which considerably restrict the samples possibilities. But still, as there are currently no data on ancient technical processes, I think the results will be really interesting. So I decided to focus on 3 regions that have been revealed from the ethnographic survey, which is the Red River Delta, the Thanh province, and the Champa. For each of these regions have different research question. For example, for the Champa, it seems to have had technical exchanges between the highlands and the lowlands. So I hope that my research will be able to understand when and what were the modalities of those exchanges. So if possible, this will be followed by more ethnographic and archaeological researches in both Vietnam and Laos, in order to reconstruct the history of those technical traditions and the relation of the different social groups. So as a few points of discussion on that, technical processes are significant chronocultural markers. The information provided by the study goes far beyond the mere knowledge of objects, but also allows to learn more about the social and historical context of archaeological assemblage. Therefore, by only taking into account stylistic aspects and leaving aside technical processes, we are depriving ourselves of related social, sociological, and historical informations. As I am here talking in a museum panel, I will also add that this kind of research also helps us to in the valorization of usually underrated material, because this approach mainly can be used on not so beautiful kind of ceramics, because we are looking at production traces. So the really polished and well finished and glazed ceramics usually have little to tell, or it is more difficult to reconstruct technical processes. So usually researchers look at domestic pottery, cooking pots, storage pots, and also shirts. So those kind of things that museums don't exactly know what to do with. So this will be the end of my presentation. I hope it was clear and that it may be inspire you in any ways. Thank you so much for your listening.
Thank you, Cécile. The topic is, I think, of the procedure that many archaeologists and even art historians are trying to follow in that track. But since you propose this into a more formal way of doing it, I think it will suggest that people follow the track more and more. Okay, sorry that you have to attend this at night. I hope you're not too sleepy for the Q&A session. All right, thank you. And our next presenter of this session 2 is they're a team of this presentation, but I think only one will be the presenter. That is Ayu Dipta Kirana, who will be speaker on this topic for us, but her partner in the team is Fajar Aji Jiwandono. Okay, the topic is Indonesian Museum after New Regime Order, the representation that never disappeared. Well, very exciting to hear from you. Go ahead, Ayu. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Somlat. I will try to share my screen. Can everybody hear my voice? I hope.
Yeah, very clear.
Okay. So.
Or a little bit louder.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. I'm very happy for this opportunity to present with you all, everyone in this room for SPAFA, to present my work of thought about the Indonesian Museum after the New Order regime, the presentation that never disappears. So me with my Fajar Aji tried to develop some work about it's a very brief history of museum in Indonesia after the New Order regime. Usually the research the museum studies research more focused on the decolonized or the new museology on the modern, but it's very little research about how the New Order regime in Indonesia changed the many thoughts of the museum in Indonesia. So I will begin my presentation about a very brief history of New Order. So this regime started in 1966 when the Suharto takes over the responsibility as president from the Sukarno. So this man is the second president of Indonesia. Suharto is very popular and very controversial figure in Indonesia until right now, because he led as a president for 32 years with the totalitarian manner. So he changed many ways in Indonesian system, government system, economic system, and even changed the educational and knowledge system of Indonesian with the three main sector that he tried to highlight was for the economic, education, and citizen welfare. So the vision of the New Order regime, he can run for a very long time, for 32 years, because he built the homogeneous society in Indonesia. Suharto, with his vehicle in the New Order regime, his regime, makes some harmonious, like balance, but centralized authority. He make like Indonesians people live in such a very prosperity country. He let us think that we are very live in a very welfare country, very modern, very like a fairy tale, I guess. But at the same time, he using military punishment to prevent the chaotic situation. that's why this regime is very similar with the totalitarians, like the totalitarian leadership. So on 19 around 17th, Suharto's made history product as a propaganda. His policies very called Repelita, or the 5 years plan. He managed to make some government rule with the aim to to be a development country, to modernity. So the modernity can be translated into many historic product as a propaganda. He produced a 7-volume book of the national history of Indonesia, or we call Sejarah Nasional Indonesia, and museum itself, historic movie and comics. He make a history. He makes a story of the history that glorified the prosperity and the modernity, even in the very past history. He just make some he just try to highlight some not many culture, because Indonesian consists from the many cultures, multi-layered culture, but he also focused on the only on the Javanese culture perspective. So this is one of the product of very famous Taman Mini Indonesia Indah. He makes some miniature of the Indonesian that looks very harmony, very modern, very like living in fairy tale. So for Indonesian Museum under the new Orde regime, Suharto enforced the standardized museums, especially for the under government museum management. So as I said before, the top-down policy called the Repelita. It's Rencana Pembangunan 5 tahun of the 5 years plan in 1974 to develop the 26 provincial state museums. So in those 26 provincial, Suharto built the state museum and used the official history that used to narrate the storyline. So this official history is approved by the government. So we cannot see many perspective of the history. Only the official history that approved by the government that can be shown on those 26 provincial state museum. So, but in 1998, Indonesia this regime, then the downfall. The regime is changed, so it called Indonesia the Reformation Era. So we are shift into the new leader. There are so many chaotic time at the Indonesian history time at that time, because it's a very chaos. So the government unstable, but people this chaotic time also called with the people powers. So this is like 20 years ago. It's a very phenomenal time of the history in Indonesia. So how about the Indonesian after the chaotic? So the Reformation start the shifting of policy in Indonesia. So if on the Suharto's era, we have the top-down policy called Repelita, the 26 provincial state museum now can be independent museum. They're back to the region office in every province, and they have to um, they have to uh, adapt with the new environment. They can more be they don't have to use the standardized museum again. Museum can change the storyline or use the temporary exhibition to narrate the alternate story by the temporary exhibition, or build deconstruct the old narration. But one of the museum that try to improve and change the storyline is my museum is on Sono Budoyo in Yogyakarta. But frankly, we deconstruct the storylines 20 years after the Suharto's dawn. So it's not instantly we change the storyline, but like it took more than a decade, maybe 2 decades to change the storyline, and it's a very slow to write over the narration. But when the Suharto's leads, it's a very difficult to find the history about the minority group or about the woman, about the figure that very controversy, because as you know, the Suharto is very took the control over the people. So it's very difficult for us to narrate when in the New Order regime. But after the Reformation, it's much more open. The narration is much more free. There are freedom to elaborate with many community, especially like a Chinese community, because it used to be repressed by the government at that time. So the news we now like a state museum is it's much more free to voice many people, many history perspectives. So we can learn the true tolerancy, the true multicultural, not like when Orde Baru's regimes rule. So that I highlight with the change after the Reformation. The Reformation Museum is the rise of the district museum. So there are so many local museum in city or district region in Indonesia. We call it kabupaten. It's a very small content, but with a powerful message to present the local history. It used to be very difficult to reconstruct the local history again, because it's very used to be have to approved by the official historian from the government. So so many districts now open their museum, and it's very they have very many stories to tell, and it's very like more from grassroots stories. So they present the local hero of city Purbalingga. For I give you this in my presentation, for example, is the Mr. Sugarda. He was proposed by a local community to be a national hero because his contribution and education sector, including initiated Cendrawasih University as the first university built in Papua. So this figure is very beloved by the citizen of the Purbalingga, because but when Suharto ruled at that time, this figure are it's not really that matter, because this figure is very close to Sukarno. So there are so many political agenda over the museum in Indonesia at that time. So there are so many shading the many figure that very close relate to the enemy of the regime at that time. So this is very this museum proof can local hero can be also told the story. So also in Lampung province, from my friends Fajar, he also um, built the museum in Lampung province. There's so many also in after the Reformation, there are so many regions in Indonesia try to expand and to become a new district. It's called pemekaran wilayah or expansional region. So when the Suhartos ruled the country, they they try to make a country that looks so very balanced. There are no conflict, like nothing happens on that time. So expansional region is very rare case when in Suharto's rule, because it will be looks so not harmonized. So after reformations, many region in Indonesia try to expand because they think that this region it's much more uh, uh, it's much more comfortable with their uh, own agenda. It's very different with the other regions. So there are also many conflicts because Suharto tried to put a, a small part or small group of the region into to become the one state or into to become the district. So this is uh, very clearly that when many districts try to expand their region and become independent, it's they can write their history. They can write their what they think is very important and for their community rather than the what the government says. So this is what I found is very interesting was the uh, museum in city of Probolinggo, because he narrated the ethnic group in Probolinggo. They built some many display. I know it's not really not really modern museum. It's very small museum, but the curator can develop uh, the multi-ethnic group, and they can join hands with the community to contribute to museum and be part of the collection. So this small museum, I think, can prove that how museum to be inclusive. Museum are part of the community. So it's not only for the curator, it's not for the researchers only, it's not for the officer, but joins hands with the community, join hands with the people. It's very the way can people will love the museum. Uh, so, and I would like to highlight the next big thing after the Reformation era of in a museum is private museum in Indonesia are very much open. It's very different from the state museum. Private museum is much more free to narrate, to develop the exhibition, to narrate their storyline. So it's there are so many museums open after the Reformation, and they told story what they really like. They told story about the community. They told story about the what people thinks about the history. But what is really interesting for me, this is the Suharto's families also opened the museum. This museum is open in Yogyakarta in 2013, like 15 years after the Reformation. Then they opened this museum only for the Suharto. And what's very interesting is they open with the official history that Suharto create on New Order Rezim, and they put the display, the propaganda that they really meant to be, and then uh, and then there are so many visitors come to Suharto Museum to like pay tribute to him. And it's a very interesting because as a private museum, they really could think that the official history is the true history, and for them it's not true or wrong. It's that it's the narration, or it's the story that they believe. So still there are so many visitors come to Suharto, especially after the Reformation, and there are so many uncertain situation in Indonesia, like chaos and many things in Indonesia. But there are a lot. I think this museum is really can reflect what are we develop, what are we museums develop after the Reformation, that it's freedom to speech and narrate what they really can represent the community. So why I have taken note for question, why is it important for us to deconstruct the New Order ideology? Because like I said before, most people, especially the older generation, found it's very comforting to live in the such era. That's why Suharto Museum is very popular. They can pay to tributes like a pilgrim tourism for them to see the life of Suharto in the museum. But again, those ideology of New Order is think that we are living in a harmony, in a balance, in the very centralistics. So what I highlight for this is why we have to deconstruct the New Order ideology is that there are so many narrative and many perspectives that that being marginalized when in Suharto's eras ruled the country. So the museum right now can live, can develop into many narrative and deconstructed, standardize the storyline. But another question that I raised after I tried to write this work for SPAFA is why it took like 20 years for state museum, for like in Sono Budoyo, 20 years to change the narrative and to deconstruct the standardize the storylines. It's raised the question for myself that I cannot be answered right now, but I think this question, this is reflects that there will be generation that still living in a comfort when the comfortable living in the Suharto's era. So like younger generation will take over like after 20 years after that. So I think it will be very a nice question. I will end this presentation by the question for myself and for very audience, because maybe I cannot answer the question too. But I think for me to conclude this discussion, museum reflects the society, so the freedom of the narrative and how people would like to tell their story. It's reflect on the museum. So maybe that's why there are still many things. The idea of the new order regime still alive right now until now, because there are people, the group of people still admire his rule, but another group is have a very different opinion about that. So I think that's what makes this beautiful journey to museum now in Indonesia to, to develop. I think that's my presentation. I hope if you want to ask me or something, we can touch with by email.
Thank you, Ayu. You can listen to her talk and you can see that she presented it with her wholehearted. Why? I asked the question also, Ayu, because I want to tell everybody that Ayu Dipta worked as a curator in Sonobudoyo Museum in Yogyakarta. And she's also has an archaeological background. That's why she's involved in many exhibitions of archaeological collection. And for Fajar, she's also, he is a heritage and museum enthusiast, start as an officer in the Office of Cultural Affairs in Tulang Bawang. In 2020, he joined the team on the development of the Tulang Bawang Museum as collection manager and curator. So that's why her talk is from a very insight perspective. Our next speaker is also from a museum person. He's Ifan Yoga Pratama Suharyogi. Also, he has his team with him, but he will be the presenter. His team will be, are Agustina Djafar, Rahajeng, Ayu Permana Sari, and Paradit Kenyo Arun Devantoro. But since Ifan will be the represent for all of them, I welcome you, Ifan. His talk will be on Geological Museum innovation to dealing with COVID-19 pandemic. So the floor is yours, Ifan.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Somlak. I'll try to present our article. I'll share the presentation.
While you are sharing the slides, I would like to add on that Ifan works at the Documentation and Conservation Department of this museum, Geological Museum in Bandung, West Java. And it's part of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. He is a researcher specializing in geology and vertebrate paleontology and has conducted paleontological excavation in Flores, Indonesia. So now I give you the floor again, Ifan.
Yeah, okay. Thank you again. This is Somlak. Actually, this is not my major discipline because I'm in paleontology and this is about the museum. That I'll try to present what our museum to have innovation to dealing with the COVID-19. Okay, good afternoon. Okay, I'm Ifan Yuga Pratama Suharyogi. I'm from Geological Museum, Geological Agency, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. This article made by my colleague and I. I would like to present this article. Okay. This is our presentation outline. And then the outline is introduction and then the innovation that Geological Museum doing since the pandemic. And then the profile engagement and the last is how we reopening the museums. Okay, the introduction. The Geological Museum itself was established on May 16 in 1929 as a laboratory in the Dienst van den Mijnbouw. It's like a department of mining in Dutch era. And then there are several name changing since the time until today become a geological museum as part in Geological Agency Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Based on the ministerial regulation number 12 on 2013, the Geological Museum itself have a function to carry out the management, research, development, conservation, exhibition, and dissemination of geological collection information. And then until May 2021, we have already registered 471,000 collection. But we have more than that number, but the 471,000 collection, it was registered as a public property of the Republic of Indonesia. So so it's belong to the Republic of Indonesia, and its security are under the Republic of Indonesia. So from those registered collection, we have around 226,000 collection for invertebrate fossil, and then there are about 26% it's rock and mineral resources, but rock and mineral collection. But from this collection, nowadays we try to separate the rock and mineral and the wood fossil, because before the registered we make the wood fossil as part of the rock and mineral, so we separated it because it's a fossil, not a rock. And then we have around 21,000 collection of the artifact that was collected on the Dutch era. So we didn't have any pressure to collect another artifact collection, and around 60,000 of the collection are the vertebrate and hominid fossil. But from this number of collection, it's only 0.5% that we show it in exhibition collection. It's around 2,000 collection. 2,000 collection on the exhibition room that we divided into 4 rooms. This is the history of life room, and then the Indonesian geological room, the benefit and disaster room, and then the geological resources room. And since March 2nd, 2020, our government, Indonesian government, announced that COVID-19 has entered Indonesia, and because of it, so the head of the Geological Museum decided to make a temporary close for the museum since March 16, 2020 for 2 weeks, but they renew the regulation until today. We decided to close the museum. And the aims of this article is to identify the geological museum activity during the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the temporary close due to the pandemic, our museum create the activity to keep people interested, such as the collection talk. This is the collection talk event. This event is to disseminate collections information of the Geological Museum collection which not only show in exhibition room, but also from the storage rooms. So we have a collection that we didn't show it in the exhibition room. We show to the virtual visitor by this event to show and explain the collection, about their description, the collection description, where and how it was found, and the significance for the science. Like in this slide, we have the event about the Megalodon tooth fossil that was found in Suradi, Sukabumi, West. We found this fossil from the villagers that dig a soil, dig a stone to make a stone for build their house, to make a fondasi, something like that. They find a fossil in the stone layer. From this fossil, we know that Surade, before in the past 28 million years ago, was an ocean that gradually uplift until today became an island. This event not only just show the fossil, the significance, we also make a storyline for the mini museum in this location, because of the local government want to have a museum, because this Megalodon finding is the abundance of the fossil. It's the more abundant in Java. And then the other activity was day and night at the museum. Actually, this event was held before the pandemic, to give a special experience and sensation for the visitor. But since the pandemic, all the activity were go to virtually. The activity, this event has several activity, like virtual tour on the exhibition room, not only in the exhibition room, but also from the storage room and the preparation room. So the virtual visitor can have it can give a new experience to the visitor to know the storage room of the museum and so on. And then we have a Bincang Museum. It's a talk show about the museum worker, how they work in the museum, what experience they get. And then in this slide, it's about the guides of the museum worker. And the other talk show of this event is like presented the researcher worker in the Geological Museum, how they work, how they find a collection, and so on. And then there's another innovation, like virtual geoscience socialization. This event is like the day and night at the museum. It was held before the pandemic, and since the pandemic, we carry out the socialization by virtually. The audience of this event was a teacher and a student of junior and senior high school, and the local government, which which we held the socialization. So the socialization is about the geological information from like for the example in this slide about the information of the Tasikmalaya. So we socialize the geological information of in Tasikmalaya in this area, what they have, what the geological resources in this area, what's the about the disaster that will happen in this area, and the unique things of this area. Like we also broadcast from the local geological unique area location in Tasikmalaya, that was Jasper gemstone. There's a lot of gemstone, Jasper gemstone in this area, so it can be like a geotourism site to local government to make a benefit of it. The others is virtual school visit. Since the pandemic, we closed the museum, so the school cannot take the student to the museum. So we invite the school to make a virtual tour for their student. It's a private virtual tour. We also make this virtual tour can be done from the kindergarten until the university student, especially for geoscience students, to make a practical course like this. This is the private virtual tour visit from the kindergarten, and we guide the student to around the exhibition room virtually. The other is innovation to we improve our social media. Before the pandemic, the social media was only about the activity or the what we call fun. Yeah, just it's like Happy New Year. Just posting about like that. And then since the pandemic, we try to improve our social media to posting about our collection and the description, the unique, just like the other activity, we describe the detail of the collection our Instagram media, and then there are another social media like Facebook or YouTube. This is the account of Facebook. There's a Sahabat Museum Geologi, and we have another account for Geomuse, and for the YouTube account, Museum Geologi. In the YouTube account, sometimes we every time we have an activity like a collection talk or and day and night at the museum, we posted it in the YouTube account. And the other innovation, the newest innovation we have Merdeka Belajar. It's mean like a freedom to learning. We give the information about anything about the geological information that not only on the museum, like a part of the geological studies, like about the volcano, about the water. The newest we share about the how to dig a fossil, about how we maintains the water, something like that. And then this is the profile engagement since the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. there's an increase of the virtual visitors, but I'm sorry, I only show the 2021 virtual visitor. We can see that there's many visitor that involved with our activity. There's for the virtual school visit, there's about around 7,000 students mengikuti. Yeah, follow the virtual tour. Then and the news information, our museum since November 3rd, 2021 already reopened the museum for the temporary time. It's open only on it's closed on Monday, Friday, and national holiday, and the other day we open it only for 3 hours from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Before we reopen the museum, all the museum workers have been vaccinated for the COVID, and there are several health protocol to visit the museum for the visitor. The first visitor are in good health and have been vaccinated, and for the group of visitor that will come to museum, we yeah, they have make a reservation, and for the group, for now it's only came from Bandung, where the museum was there in Bandung, and for children under 20 years old, it must be accompanied by their parents, and the maximum visitor for a day it's only 300 visitor. And yeah, the duration it's only 3 hours, like I said before, and we decided to when it was closed or when it was full for the visitor. Okay, and then that's it for the presentation, and I would like to thanks to the all committee of the SPAFACON 2021 and the Geological Museum for providing the picture of all this research. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ifan. That's also very good for all of our followers on the Facebook and Zoom, the webinar of SPAFACON, to learn about the movement of different type of museums in the region of Southeast Asia, because not only we know your movement during the pandemic, but we also learn getting to know your museum, and it's also the experience share for every museum, because I know that every museum must be online during this period, but some are doing a different way than others. So this is a very good sharing of style of museum struggling to survive with this resilient period that we have to cope with COVID. So thank you very much. So we have a question on the topic of IU about Indonesian museum after new regime order, the representation that never disappear. I'm with you. Are you? I understand very well, but that doesn't happen only in Indonesia. I think everywhere that they use the museum as the propaganda of everything, not just for the leaders or anything, the propaganda. But we are born with that, being the propaganda institution. So how do I say it? Fight on. All right. So there's a question from Ian Lee, who's working with us at SPAFA, but he's very much interested in the topic. And he say, Sukarno, the previous president, and Suharto featured different style of leadership. They both prefer developing hardline power systems. Can you say a bit more about the different legacies of Sukarno, a writer and brilliant orator influenced by Western political theories, who led by changing environment first in order to free people from oppression, so as to live better lives, while Suharto, who graduated from primary school but appreciated Javanese culture and philosophy and chose to change individuals first to achieve nationalist ideals. It's a bit long, but
Yeah.
You want me to repeat?
No. It's already
okay.
on the Q&A box, so I can read it. So it's very great question. I think it's a very tough one question. So, Sukarno and Suharto has very different style of leadership. So, but if the Sukarno have like much more like a fire, the type of leader with a very passionate and a very different approach to people. So Sukarno is much more using like the people power to collect the voice, like when the independence of Indonesia, Sukarno is really like to lead many people and bring people together in the very big space area, and he narrates his oration is very burn the people. So the style is much more like using the people power, but the Suharto is a very different type of leadership because he approached the power with very Japanese style. It's like when Benedict Anderson's research in the type of the Suharto's power, Benedict Anderson saw that the Suharto much more like king of king leader even in the Majapahit period. So he built like much more feudal, like much more like a kingdomship. So it's a very different approach. He didn't need to raise his voice because he used a very soft power, we call it in the cultural studies. He using the very technique not to raise the voice, but the voice itself is very powerful behind. He puts many people to be his pawn, many people to use his to do his job like that. So what makes Suharto is different. So he knows that Sukarno is using the people power. So when he leads the government, he cut ties the people power itself. So this regime is very control over the freedom to speech, freedom to make some group, the governments watch them very tight. So he knows that Sukarno's heritage with the people power to move to shift to change to be to change the people to create some changing is very fearful for Suharto. So he control it, the people power, and use it. So that's why in the Reformation in 1998, the people powers win because he cut the power, people power, the voice of the power is very so many years. So I think that's a very different style, and that's my I hope it's the answer is can deliver very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Seems there are lots of questions for you, Ayu. But this is from me. I like to ask from my curiosity. Don't you like living in a fairy tale?
Again, it's a very tough question. Yes, we're like living in a fairy tale, but
Well,
No,
but I understand. I'm just kidding, because you use that word a lot. That just like living in fairy tale. So what's wrong with that? No. I know what you mean. Next question. I think it's for Ifan. This is from Randy Nobleza from the Philippines. He said, interestingly, we also have mining operations before in our island, but it is already closed. We had a mining disaster before. There is ongoing litigation abroad. We would like to tell the narrative via an exhibit. Based on your experience, what advice you can give to tell the story without being confrontative, blazed, or antagonistic? So probably the two of you, may I start with Ifan?
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Somlak. And thank you for the question from Mr. Randy. I would like to try to answer the question. We can socialize with the local government or a stakeholder on those area mining operation. On this mining operation, we can change the mining into a geotourism object, or yeah, something like that. That's make a benefit for the local government and the local people in this area. We can make the history of the mining the geological resources from those mining. That why those location have to be a mining location. So we can write the history, the geological resources, or even the disaster. We can write to become a good story to make another people to came in this area to watch this is the location that mining something, and then there's a disaster because of what, and then yeah, it can be a new geotourism. Yeah, I think like this.
Okay, thank you. Ayu, would you like to say something on this question? Because he mentioned on the without being confrontative, biased, or antagonistic. So I think that you can give advice on that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Maybe it's very short because sometimes it's very difficult to not use provocative tones on the label or caption. So, hello, advice can you details with comments? From my experience, based on my experience, it's very difficult to be not biased or confrontative, but we can be less antagonistic because somehow our voice, we know that museum is never be a neutral place because museum is the voice of people, voice for something, voice for fight for something. So it is very difficult for us for not biased, but be less antagonistic. So we can be use very powerful message, but in a very subtle ways. And I think it's like an experience because I'm still learning to curate exhibition that like that. I know it's not very well delivered answer for you, but that's my best from experience. I cannot be really not be a natural place. Thank you.
I think Randy, I think you get the answer in a way. There's no direct answer like you were saying, but it's just the tactic that we learn how to deliver that message without any danger way getting back to you. All right. So I would like to get back to Cécile. You mentioned that you have been working with Vietnamese, right? Pottery.
Yes.
You work with a museum, or have they used any introduction of approaching the artifact with technology? Have they in any way find that very useful, or have you been introducing these research to them? And can you give us an example?
Yeah. For now, I am just working on collections in European museums. So because of COVID, I cannot go to Vietnam. So
right.
Those collections are not like the most renowned collections of the museums. So they are still interested because there is many researches on provenance and so on. So knowing where they were made and by whom. So they are interested. But clearly, even though this is the kind of approach I personally learned and used in South America and Africa, where the whole approach have been mostly developed in Africa and Neolithic, European Neolithic, and so I basically took the approach and tried to apply it to Vietnamese ceramics. But my contacts in Vietnam are clearly really interested in that kind of approach, even though it is clearly new for them, as it is for most of Southeast Asia, because I only know one research using exactly the same approach as mine, and is in Thailand.
Yes.
By Aude Favreau and Berenice Bellina. They used the same approach as mine, and their results were really, really interesting, especially about Sahuin Kalanai culture, where they showed that they were clearly they could identify those that were produced locally by local people, locally by foreign people, and imported ones. So I think that's the kind of result I'd like to be able to have also in Vietnam.
Well, thank you. I think researchers, archaeologists or art historians, they have been trying to work on that. But I think not only from the technology itself, but also many advanced technology that they have to have in order to come up with the solution of whether this is the technique that they use in, I think they are still developing process that will have to be done later on. So it's good that you following that track. And even though some have been introducing that process, but more and more in the future, it must be useful, more useful for the identification of and provenance of these artifacts. So very good.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Well, another question is for Ayu, from Randy again. He said he would like to know more about emergent narrative after the Suharto. What can the future generation learn from the new regime order?
Okay, so when the new regime used to be the narrative story in Indonesian museum, it's much more chronological aspect. So it starts from prehistoric period, Hindu, Buddhist, Islamic, colonial periods. Those formula it's everywhere. It's in much more. In many museums, the formula is always like that. So it's not that because those is the standardized of the official history from Suharto. So right now, after the Reformation, 20 years after this, the museum developed the new story. No, we like the trends of the exhibition now, like to develop the story about the minority group, like a Chinese community, or we try to represent the marginalized communities, about the woman, about the power of woman, and also we can talk about the popular culture or local history. So there's so many diverse perspective right now. So it used to be very sensitive case topic to bring up alive. So it can be more free to talk right now. So I think what younger generation could learn from the new order is how the regime is marginalized some ethnic group or the community and silence them forever. Sometimes he put the very cruel way to on the name of development. So I think museum now can promote the inclusivity. So it's museum is for people right now.
Well, can I follow with that question? When you name your topic, Indonesian Museum after the new regime order, the representation that never disappear. That means that it still appear. And but if we think of the percentage, but you think it's gradually developed from that, right?
Yes. So the state museums itself still have the storyline from the Orde Baru. It's never changed. Not many museums change. In Sono Budaya, in my museum also, it's still there, the storyline, because the situation is very hard to change. But we try to change the label. We try to develop the temporary exhibition. It's very different from the permanent exhibition. So the representation still in museum, especially for the state museum. They're right now on the permanent exhibition on every province in Indonesia, still there. But we try to save very slow. It's not many museums change, but they try to change the caption. They try to change the narration, but not the object, but not the main storyline. But they try to relate with the now situation. I think like that.
Thank you. Thank you. But I think part of the reason that they change, they never change probably, is because he's a historic figure. In a way, he's in the history, unless we try to minimize the story of that period into the way new generation look at it, probably. Well, another question probably to Ifan. I'm looking at your slides, and you have one program, virtual geoscience socialization, right? Right? And you said this is to disseminate geological information. I understand to students, to teachers, but you said to government. What do you expect from that? And who are the governments that you talk about?
Okay. I mean the government was local government, like the regency, the local regency governments. The local governments, the regency can make like a geotourism object or geosite. It can make another can make income. Yeah, it can increase the income of the local area in this area. So yeah, by give the information like them. Nowadays, yeah, to them. Nowadays, the like UNESCO Global Geopark, something like that. They make a geosite, geotourism object to make this, and then yeah, by make another it can increase the income of this local government and the other people in this area.
No, yeah. I was thinking that you may probably you are approaching them in order to take care of the environment and climate change and all that. So give them
we also
you do that also, right?
Okay. Yeah, we did also those information, and yeah, for the government it make a nice when we say increase for the increase their when we say it's increase money, the government will
I think that's what other museums are looking for, ways to get their attention, to give more budget, right? And also, but because CMO SPAFA is working on the heritage impact assessment seminar that will be going online next week. So we think that this is also another way that we can approach the organization responsible for the development of a urban city or something like that. They should be you know, their awareness should be raised by the museum also. Whatever type of museum we are, we can use, you talk about propaganda. So we can use these institutions for propaganda of, you know, saving the planet and, you know, raising the budget and all that. So that's a good way. So, so I think our time's up for this session, but please stay on. Since you are our last session, we just invite you now to please stay on for our closing time. I don't want to say closing ceremony. It will not be that formal. So from day one, so SPAFACON 2021 was moved from 2022. Usually the conference is arranged every 3 years by Simeo SPAFA. But because this year is a celebration for our 50th anniversary, that's why we move it up to this year. So I am very delighted that we were afraid before that if we go online, there will not be that many participants. Please don't turn off your camera. We want you to turn on your camera and be with us during these closing hours. So I would like to say that instead of getting less participants, it seems that we have quite a lot of people who wants to present their abstract to us. There are about 100 papers present to us, but due to the online system, we have to cut down. And right now we have 34 papers presented by all of you. And we've been doing that from day 1 to day 5, which is today, and 34 presenters with us. All of them are from archaeology, conservation and tradition and craft, and visual art and performing arts. And lastly is on museum management and ethics. So this is quite a delight for all of us at SPAFA. So I would like to thank all of our speakers from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. All of you have made this event very productive for professionals in the field of archaeology and fine arts. And so I would like to mention the behind the scene people who had made this event very successful, starting from our moderators, beginning with Dr. Noel Tan. Are you appearing? Okay. Who's the project leader of this SPAFACON, and he's behind you know, every move of SPAFACON, from collecting all the papers, moderating, and stage manager and everything, but he cannot do it alone. We have our staff who are helping with this event, starting from Dr. Hataya. Are you there? Dr. Hataya, are you on the screen? If not, Hataya and Ian Lee.
Yes, I'm here. I'm unable to start the video because okay, now I got a message to start the video. Yeah,
All right. So Ian Lee, these three from Noel to Hatia and Ian are our moderator. And but the most attractive voice behind the video and the MC is our beloved John Paul Idao. He was here before. All right. So this is John. And another three people who take care of all the stage and everything and video are Pui, Ratchaporn, and Ngoài, who's take care of every preparation of the stage and control everything, and her assistant, Kanal Kyo. I pronounced right. And we call him Jerry. And with us right now is Nippon, who's our photographer. Aside from these people, we have all the team of SPAFA team who are really behind the scene, but they are the backbone of all the success of our event today. I think Noel, you would like to show us the slide? And you can say something. Please. Noel?
Oh yeah. So as we've been saying the whole week, we have the conference. We're having the proceedings go online, and in fact, I've been doing that for the entire morning. The proceedings are now online on our publications page, so you can download the entire all the papers that were presented in this conference. And the more like extended abstracts. So some of them are substantial, and some of them are not that short, but shorter. And they are all on our publications website, and they also have a DOI, and they also have individual chapters. So if you just want to download individual papers, you can also do that on the website. So some holiday reading for you.
All right. Okay. Okay. What else would I like to say? Oh, most of the people that I would like to say thank you are our audience from all parts of the world. You have been staying with us from the beginning and until now. So we thank you, all of you, so much to be with us on this event. And it's getting close to a New Year holiday. So I would like to say a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We wish you a sustainable happiness, great health and wealth, and also stay safe. See you in the next SPAFACON. And before SPAFACON, which will come back in another next 3 years. We can't say yet in what year. We will talk about it, which 3 year we will, turn back to this, organizing this SPAFACON. But on the 21st and 22nd, we also have another seminar on heritage impact assessment by using the case study on Ayutthaya, which will be in Thai but translated into English, which will be organized by Dr. Hattaya on the 21st and 22nd next week. So follow us on that program as well. Okay, last but not least, see you and thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.